Welcome to BeastNet.
You've tuned in to a special episode dedicated to the Sober Spartan. These episodes are an extension of the Facebook group Sober Spartans. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the host and guest and do not necessarily reflect any policy or position of anyone but themselves. Show guests share their stories openly and honestly. Some will remain anonymous, some will share their names. Please be respectful of the privacy of those who wish to remain anonymous.
Hey everybody out there in BeastNet land, you got Sir Boggs of More Heart Than Scars on the horn today, talking with Amanda from Sober Spartans and More Heart Than Scars. Recently there was some big news with her at the race at Fayetteville, and we'll get into that here a little bit later. But for those who don't remember you, let's reintroduce you. Amanda, tell everyone who you are and what got you where we are.
All right. Well, my name is Amanda. Some people know me as Amanda Kelley on social media. About me. I'm just an everyday person who loves Spartan racing. And about 3 years ago, well, shoot, even longer than that, handful of years ago, I had been attending a bunch of Spartan races and meeting people on the course that are sober. And like me, I've been sober now for 17 years, April 15th, 2005. And I realized there's a lot of folks out there that use Spartan racing as their way of kind of dealing with a lot of the stuff, that goes along with being within addiction, whether it's, alcohol or drugs or even just behavioral addiction. So I thought, I'm just going to make up this tiny little group that I could just friend request all these people that I'm meeting that are also sober and that do Spartans or OCR in general. And it turned into me and a couple people, into a few more people and a few more. And now we've got a pretty good, solid group of people. I'm on the East Coast. We got people on the West Coast. I want to say we even have a couple that are in Canada that are now members of the Sober Spartans. And so Sober Spartans is my baby, but it's literally there for nothing other than support, camaraderie. We meet up at Spartan races. If anything, just to have kind of a safe space. So we haven't been doing them as much just because some of us admins have been a little busy, but we usually do weekly meetings, and we don't necessarily have to, it's not the traditional, hi, I'm Amanda, I'm an alcoholic. It's more of a, hey, what are we doing this week? How are we training? How are we feeling? How are we applying the two, to each other? So yeah, that's pretty much my gig. What else you want to
know? Sober Spartans, when I found that, it was at a good time. Myself, I'm 5 years sober.
Congrats.
5 years and 5 days to be exact right now, since
Yes,
today's
sir.
the 6th.
So awesome.
I found the group at just the right time because, going into COVID, the group was just starting to grow. And then with the COVID shutdown, many people returned back to drugs or alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I know that's when you and Jessica really stepped up the number of meetings and the online, community, and just talking daily, posting things. And, it was really helpful even for myself to get through COVID and have a safe place to go because, the regular meetings were all shut down. You couldn't just walk in and sit down and, hey, I'm done, I'm an alcoholic. Nope, you just kind of sat there and stared at the mirror. And I think that drove a lot of people back into it, unfortunately. So now, we need to be there to be that beacon of light, that hope, and hopefully people will reach out to us. I know that every time I post one of these episodes where we talk about it, I always post all the hotlines and all the info, but you can always reach out to me or Amanda or Jessica, our West Coast admin, or just anybody in the group. I don't think there's anybody that'll say no, or if they don't know the answer, I'll find someone.
Right. Absolutely. We're all open. I always say I have an open inbox. Sometimes if really needed, I'll pop my phone number in there and you're welcome to call. We are just there for each other. I mean, there's no sort of like clout or celebrity that goes with this. This is just support. We are here, however, needed. And yeah, I appreciate you putting all the phone numbers. We need them. We need to have those plastered everywhere, So.
And then I saw an article, I need to find it again, where they actually talked about the substitution of running for addiction. And, I need to find that again, because it's definitely true for myself and for a lot of other Spartans. Even my best friend, Pretty Mike, he was deep in a bottle and got addicted to running, and now he barely drinks. He still drinks, but it's responsible. Something I could never do. Someday maybe I'll be in the ground and then they can pour some alcohol on me, and then maybe I won't absorb it. Who knows? But
that's unnecessary.
I had somebody be like, they're like, hey, let's go have a beer. I'm like, yeah, if I have that one, you'll never see me again.
Yep.
And that's the truth of it, and that's true for a lot of us, unfortunately.
Yeah. No way. Can't do it. And you know what? I will say I am okay with being, I don't want to say just okay with being around it, but for my people that have chosen to still drink, socially, as long as they're, whatever, I don't mind if it works for you and it's help, like you can do it in a healthy way. I just can't do it in a healthy way. If you can go and have a beer or two at dinner, then I'm not going to judge you. And I'm not going to be one of those folks that's like, if just there's so many of us that we can't do that. And
I know for me, stepping off course as a newly sober person 5 years ago, and you cross that finish line, and they used to actually hand out beers at the finish line at some of these events. And I was like, oh, gee, thanks for the beer. What do I do with this now?
Nope.
And it's kind of cool now where they give the drink tickets where you can get a Fit Aid, I guess, instead of a White Claw. But
I've never done that. Now I need to do that. I don't even do that. I've been missing out.
Yeah,
I literally, when I get my packet, I literally take out all the things and I throw the drink ticket. I used to, when I first started racing, give it to people. And then I was like, because I started seeing people that were accumulating, people's tickets. And then they would drive home and I'm like, oh, I am not contributing to that. No way. So anyway, I just throw them away. But now I can get a Fit Aid, huh?
Yep. Hey, just take it up to the same booth where they're handing out the beer, and you say, I don't want a beer. And they get you something, Fit Aid, or I think there's a juice or something I had at one of them, but
yeah,
it's a whole lot better than alcohol.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you and I have been talking online for like 3 years, something like that now. And almost 3 weeks ago, we finally met. We got a little crazy. We went out to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and decided that doing an ultra beast was a good idea. Now,
great idea.
Myself, when I signed up, it was like, all right, I'm signing up for this, and I'm just going to push my body, do what I can, and get through it. And then about a week before the event, I get a text from Joey. Hey, we're taking 2 wheelchairs through. You want to be on crew? I'm like, well, shit, yes, son, I'm on that. Even if we don't finish, just to be part of it was going to be something I was going to be part of. And then I get down there, and here you are on crew also.
Woohoo!
I know you've done ultras in the past. if I remember
Mhm.
correctly. For
Mhm.
me, that was my first live Spartan Ultra. And you
I
didn't
didn't
know
know
that?
that. I didn't know that.
Now, I've got a bad habit. I'll do a bunch of stupid stuff with long distance running, and we did the virtual Spartan Ultra. And I was supposed to do the Dallas Ultra last year, and I got COVID about 2 weeks before the race.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was supposed to be volunteering at a marathon. The weekend I found out I had COVID, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're just backing out." It's like, no, 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 I'm sick, and so I spent a week and a half isolated, and I was not in a condition after that to go do Dallas. So
Mhm.
blindly, I just asked Joey, "What's the next flattest course?" And he told me Fayetteville. So, boom,
Mhm.
Fayetteville it was. Uh,
Perfect.
so we were on two different chairs though, so we have two different stories about how everything
Mhm.
went down there.
Mhm.
Do you want to kind of tell your story about how things went, and then I'll kind of
Yeah.
chime in?
Well, I would like to preface the story with kind of a prelude like you just gave me, because I feel it necessary to say that I've done ultras, Spartan ultras before. So I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, that's kind of really all I really want to do is distance, which is stupid, but whatever. So, but at the end of last summer, I was at West Virginia doing the trifecta weekend, and the very last race, the sprint on the last descent, I fell and I broke my tailbone. And so doctor was like, you can't do anything for several months. I kind of feel like I deconditioned a little bit physically, but then I also got COVID, and then I started having like long COVID symptoms. So long story short, when I started running again after I got signed off on being able to, I had deconditioned a lot. Um, and so I had this like ultra code, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? And I said, screw it. I'll go to Fayetteville. It's the only one that fit into my school schedule. All right, cool. I'll sign up for this because I'm stupid and I'm going to just do it. And I put a lot of pressure on myself and was really beating myself up for a whole lot of months, worried that I was not going to be able to do it. And I was going to do it by myself. Right. And then I want to say it was like mid-April, I get a message from Joey, and he says, hey, are you doing the ultra? I said, yes. He's like, do you want to be on a chair? And it was so bizarre, the automatic like flipping of the script, that I had been so internal in my head, beating myself up about, oh my gosh, will I be able to do the twister? Oh my gosh, will I be able to, X, Y, and Z. All of a sudden, my entire focus for the race just shifted. And all of a sudden, it was like, I couldn't wait. I was so excited, and I did tell Joey, I'm not as fit as I had been, but I had all the tenacity because I knew I just wanted to get Erica over the, finish line. And that shift was the precursor to this whole new shift that I have now with racing that I'm so grateful to have. And I went into this race looking at Erica as like, you are it. You are my focus. You are my so going into it was fantastic. So I just wanted to kind of get out of my own head and focus on her. And so there, yeah. Going into Fayetteville weekend. Where to start? I can say that the night before the first race was fantastic because although I had gone alongside More Heart Than Scars in races prior, this was my official first race, because all the other ones were like, I was just there and I was a substitute, and so this was the first time I'd been able to spend the weekend with people and actually go to like the pre-race night before meal and all of that. So sitting in with that was just amazing and so uplifting. And there's so many good people that I got to meet finally after just, talking to them online. One of which was you. I got the biggest hug in the parking lot, and it was fantastic. And it was a long time coming. And so, going into the weekend, it was already just super good feels, and everyone was excited about what we were going to be able to accomplish and do. There were a few naysayers, I'll say, here and there, that were just worried about whether or not we could do the whole course. But all in all, it was good feels, right? So going into Saturday morning, I was scared, but I was so excited. Standing at that start line, hearing, oh, I can't remember his name, but the announcer, talking about what kind of history was, being made by even attempting an ultra with a wheelchair athlete, or one leg with the above the knee amputee. I mean, that in itself, I was, tearing up, and it was something. Once we got out on course, we tried to stay with everybody at the beginning. Obviously, everyone ended up having their own pace. For us, it was myself, Joey, Erica, and Jonathan. So it was just the four of us. And once it got to just be the four of us, I think we really got into a really awesome groove for the first couple miles. But we were only a few miles in, and we realized that one of Erica's chair's wheels was flat. I think it was just hitting all the roots. So we debated what we were going to do, and for whatever reason, we didn't have a full-on, wheel kit with us. So we were like, "What do we do?" And we said, "You know what we do? We just push on." So we went a good, I want to say it was 10 out of the first 15 miles of lap 1 with a flat tire. And I don't know if anyone has ever, ridden a bike with a flat tire, but that's really hard. It was not the easiest thing to do, right? So
No, I've been on course. I've been on course before with a low tire, and just trying to keep the wheelchair going straight will drive you nuts because it's constantly pulling one direction. For those that are listening that don't know what a regular chair crew looks like, for More Heart Than Scars, there's usually 7 to 9 people on chair, and you guys went out with 4. So that meant that one, well, including the athlete, I guess 5. But
no, there was just
Erica,
4 of us total. 4 of us
was it just
total.
okay?
It was just,
So including
we
the
had
athlete, it was 4.
athlete, we had Joey was on break in the back, and then Jonathan and I, essentially, we were what they call a pony, which is, we basically just had ropes without any harnesses or anything. We were just holding ropes with our hands, just our grip strength, and we were pulling. We didn't have, usually there's what's called a horse, which is directly in front of the chair and is kind of what you would think it would be. I mean, it's literally like a horse on a cart. It's that person is harnessed in with a I'll say it's not a belt, but like a chest piece essentially that's made specifically to pull. We didn't have that. We just had Jonathan and I on the side, and Joey was pushing, and Erica was helping, best she could when she could with the, pushing the tire or wheeling herself. But with a flat tire, that was really difficult too, because she wasn't able to do as much. And Joey was having a really hard time pushing. With the, with that. And I will say, Jonathan and I, we ended up good few miles in kind of making adaptations. So I would take the rope and I was wrapping it around my waist and like cinching it. So my waist is being, cinched by this rope. And then by the angle of it, I don't know how to explain this really well so people can visualize it, but the rope was pulling, depending on which side of the chair you were on your hip, because that's where the force of the wheelchair, is. And so you're running or walking kind of with your hips tweaked for
Because
miles.
you're having to pull the wheelchair straight, basically, is
Correct.
why you're doing that.
Yeah.
You're pulling to the side while the other two are going forward.
Correct. So, and we ended up kind of being in the front. So we kind of were like modified horses. We just didn't have anything to harness us in. I ended up holding the rope directly in the small of my back and just keeping my arm back there just to hold it, just so that at least it was in the center of my back so my hips were straight. Because after several miles, it got to a point where it was like, okay, we'd have to swap off so that the sides of our body were essentially even as the miles went by. So yeah, that in itself was something I had never. We were pulling a wheelchair for 30 miles, without proper harnesses. But anyway, but yeah, so usually there would be, I just went on a tangent, I'm sorry. Usually there would be at least 5 people, including the athlete, and we were just down to 4. It was just the 4 of us.
Well, and usually you would also have 2 additional ponies carrying ropes, and you have somebody carrying a gear bag, and depending on the athlete, somebody carrying a harness. That's what I'm saying. You have up to 9 people on one chair, and there you guys are with 4. And that's why you didn't have a spare inner tube or anything, because it was in the gear bag. And that was Joey and I were talking about that and kind of kicking sand, because least we could have done was made a small gear bag with a pump and a tube or something, but just kind of didn't think about it. So I guess next time we'll do that, right?
Yep. Well, this was just a learning opportunity for all of us. So next Ultra will be much more planned, thought out, right?
Yeah. So 15 miles, you get back to camp.
Yeah. Well, I will say also in that first lap, things were looking good. I mean, we went through, several water crossings, including the Ultra Loop. And for those that don't know, it's the Ultra is 2 laps on a beast course, but to get the adequate miles, they make what's called the Ultra Loop, which is an extra like 2 to 5 miles, I guess. And so on the first lap, we're on the Ultra Loop, and I knew it was coming because I had done Fayetteville Ultra the year prior. There's a section that is literally chest, like waist, mid, on me it's chest because I'm short, deep of this like nasty mud, muck, root filled thing that we had to go through. I don't even know how to explain it, but it was waist high, super thick. The bottom was covered in roots and logs and ankle breakers. And we had to pull a chair through that. And we took Erica through her. She was at least half submerged. Her wheels were submerged in that portion. But we got it. We got her through, and we that was the first big hurdle on the the tire was the first. Then that I would say would be the second. The third big thing that happened on lap 1 was it started raining, and Fayetteville is notorious for being hot, right? And it thankfully wasn't as hot this go around because they bumped it into May. It wasn't in the middle of summer, but it was still really hot. Well, out of the blue comes this rainstorm that's cold. I don't understand. I have no meteorologist experience, but that was a like weird out of the blue kind of thing. I don't know. Rain,
Well,
okay. Cold rain was weird.
it was a straight downpour of what must have been upper atmosphere rain, because it was almost like the clouds just opened up like a big old sprinkler or a shower head just
Mhm.
pissing down on us, and it was not warm at all.
At all. It was
It could have been. I was already sunburned, I think, at that point, so that made the cold water even colder. And at that point, I was in the last 2 miles, where you're in that forest. It was just dark, and I swear it was 2 miles of uphill to get back to the barn. But
yeah.
that's where I was when that hit, and I'm sure you guys, that stuff made everything just that much stickier.
Yeah, it was that we were in the last couple miles of the first lap too. I think we were behind you. We had to have been behind you.
Yeah, because we all caught up right there at that transition. We actually caught up to each other, talked for a minute.
The biggest concern at that point, though, was not even our grip or the mud. It was Erica's body temperature. So she has a difficult time regulating her body temperature, and that cold rain hit her hard. So she was shivering. Like, I was actually worried that we wouldn't be able to go back out. Honestly, she looked miserable, but more of like just didn't look well. And she was also having some flashbacks to one of the most notorious and awful races of all time, the Spartan North Carolina Ultra in 2019. So she was
only
really
did the
triggered.
beast, and that beast was her only DNF.
Yep,
they had to take
that was
her
one of the roughest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was really triggered by that, mixed with her actual like body kind of revolting by dropping its temperature. So when we got into transition, it was all about, okay, what are we going to do to get her warm, get her straight, and then how are we going to take care of this tire, right? So we had her in a poncho. She had on a long sleeve I think jacket. I can't remember off the top of my head, but so we got her kind of straight, but we made the decision to swap out chairs. So for those that don't kind of know this part, the one leg was going out like a beast on his blade, but we had a chair for him just in case, which I think you're going to go into all this later, right? We took a chair out for him just in case he needed it. Well, so he didn't want to take it out the second lap. So at that point, we were like, well, we'll take that chair and we'll use that chair for lap 2. There were a lot of differences between the two chairs. There weren't proper handles for Jonathan and I to be able to pick up from the front. There was a kind of different, the wheels were all just different. And Erica couldn't help push too. Is it time for a commercial break? Is it time for a commercial break?
That's gonna be.
Do you like the BeastNet? Do you want to keep hearing it? Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and more at BeastNetPod.
So what I was saying was that the Grip Freedom chair is a great chair for somebody who's self-propelled. But for our function, it is, out of the 3 chairs that I've been on, it's the worst. And you got to experience it when you went out on lap 2.
Yeah.
My experience is it likes to steer where it wants to go. Side hilling is impossible in it without an extra body. I don't know if you had that problem with Erica where you guys got to that side hill and just wanted to throw her down the hill.
That chair wanted to throw her out quite frequently. I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of situations where she was basically turned around and trying to hold the back just so she would stay in the chair. We also had we had issues because we weren't pulling up on the front wheel. So anytime the wheel, we were going downhill, the wheel would just go straight into the mud, and we didn't have to do that with her with Excalibur. So.
Well, and on lap 2, after transition, you guys started out with that chair.
Yep.
And then something went wrong with that one, and you had to get a third chair involved. We ended up with every single chair out there, didn't we?
No, well, so I don't know if it was the same area that caused damage, but we ended up having a second flat tire. And the terrain wasn't horrible, but there was a lot of like little, roots sticking out or little branches, or there's, that one, there's under a bridge crossing where it's all rocks. And when I say rocks, I'm talking about like 2x3 boulders that are all sharp, and you have to cross like a 20-foot area of just rock.
Yep.
And I know I don't know if we hit something on that. I don't know what happened, but we got another flat tire, and we all three were like, nope, that chair was not nearly as easy to push or pull with a flat tire. So we tried and we made it maybe a half mile. And we stopped and we were like, okay, what are we going to do here? At that point, we were not, we had gotten out of transition in time.
Yep.
We didn't hit any of the cutoffs. So anyone that doesn't know this, Spartan Ultras or most Ultras will have cutoffs at certain points just to make sure you're not on course for 2 days. We were really trying to beat the cutoffs, and we had already lost time due to the rain and the first wheel, the flat wheel. So we were like, all right, do we want to try to go on a flat tire, or should we go get the other chair? Or should we run and get stuff to fix this chair, or should we run back to transition and get the chair? Those were the 3 options. So as we all sat down, we kind of had a little employee meeting, and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do. And we decided it was best if Joey and Jonathan would take the chair back to transition and either fix it or fix the original chair and bring that back to us. And meanwhile, myself, who I am a nurse, so if there's someone to have on a trail with you, I suppose it's good to have a nurse. So myself and Erica were just kind of sitting off the side of the trail for, I don't even know how long. I had no concept of time at that point. She and I got some really good quality girl time waiting, but Joey and Jonathan ended up adding more than 2 miles to their mile count for the day by going back, and they actually fixed the wheel on the first chair and brought that back to us. And at that point, I'm pretty sure we were one of the last people on course, kind of bringing up the end. We were struggling at that point, but we got Erica back in the chair. Right around that time too, I think it was like the sitting and really being able to kind of absorb what our bodies were feeling. At that point, I noticed Erica was really getting uncomfortable. We didn't really talk much about it. She doesn't like to tell people when she's hurting and when things are going wrong for her. But I could tell that there was something going on. And we were ultimately, what was happening was she was starting to bruise. Her tailbone was starting to bruise from the jarring on the wheelchair. You can move around and in a chair and offload, But when you're sitting in the chair straight for, at that point, we were at like, 18 miles or so, you can get some really nasty kind of pressure injuries, and then you throw in any of the jarring and it's just insult to injury.
And with the flat tire on lap 1, you lost the extra shock of the rubber and air.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that Eric and I talked about, was that was really rough on her, the extra impact of bouncing off the rim constantly.
Yep. And, like I said, she doesn't like to complain and tell us, she's honest. If you ask her, and she'll tell you, she doesn't hide it, but she doesn't volunteer when she's in pain. And, but even still, I could tell that she wasn't quite into it. I don't want to say into it, but you could tell that there was something going on.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was happening. So we, ventured further with back into her original chair, which I know she appreciated. And at this point, then we had 2 functioning wheels, so she had a little more cushion, but we did slow down at that point.
Yep.
So yeah.
I was going to say, one thing that people who don't go out on course with a wheelchair, when you're with a wheelchair, if you're pushing real fast and hard for time, you're also not picking her up and setting her down very softly, because you're pushing for time, which is also very, very jarring. I've been on course going slow. I've been on course going fast, and just 1 or 2 hard drops can jar an athlete. And with her being in pain, I'm assuming you had to slow down, partly from that, partly because your body's probably getting cold because you hadn't been moving in a half hour or an hour waiting for Joey to run back and fix the chair.
Yeah. We, I will say, thankfully, the terrain was kind of rough around where we had to stop, so that when we got back, at it, we weren't running. We were maneuvering and still using a lot of muscle, and still a challenge, but at least it wasn't a full out like run. And I will tell, for anyone that wants to know, we did run with the chair. And what percentage of it is probably still a low, it's probably like 20% of the race was running, because you had to get those cutoffs. So I know I had a lot of people ask me, did you guys actually run? Like, yeah, any straight or flats that we were running. And so thinking of that too, when you're running, you're just running. You're not necessarily thinking about your cargo and how smooth of a ride your cargo's having, and Erica, she's a champ. She just stuck with it. And a few times she's like, but she's a champ. So that second lap, we had a few challenges too, because we were behind. And there's my very first ultra, I had a difficult time, and I was trying to beat the cutoffs, and there were some obstacles that I made the choice to either not do and just burpee out, or even do, I wasn't doing age group, but I would do less than my 30 burpees, and I know a lot of people make those kind of modifications when they race. That very first time I had to do that, I felt so guilty. I thought, did I actually earn, this ultra medal? And after a lot of retrospection, I did. And so going into this, we knew that there was a chance we were going to have to make modifications. We didn't want to unless we had to. And so when we got to a certain point in this second lap, we kind of had the discussion of what, are we going to make it? What can we do to make sure Erica gets the best experience, that we can maintain as much integrity as possible, but do it all in a safe manner, And at that point, like I'd mentioned, Erica was really struggling. She was bruising. And we knew that ultra loop was going to be something that was not safe, because having gone through it the first time, it was not safe. We kind of just barreled through it the first time. We were not going to be able to barrel through it the second time again. So we made the choice to basically cut out the ultra loop, the second lap. There was a lot of debate afterwards about whether or not that was a fair choice for us to do that. I tried to rely on my own personal experience and how I rationalized it and how I explained it to people that, what, everyone's race is different. Every race is different. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but we did it.
You guys faced obstacles that nobody else on course faced that day.
Yeah.
And as I recall, there was the Spartan tail, the guy that was post running it and bringing up the tail, basically helped you guys in making that decision that it was a spot that you needed to bypass from Spartan.
Yeah.
And my personal experience running with More Heart Than Scars, generally the only time that I've bypassed a section of course is when a race director or somebody from Spartan looks at us and says it's unsafe to take the chair there, because we're not going to risk our athletes' well-being. And on a second lap of an ultra, starting to get colder and darker, and you guys are not in the condition you were on the first lap, the Spartan rep probably made the right call in suggesting you guys not do that, because you had the big downhill, you had the culvert run, you had the big side hill that came in there. There was a lot of obstacle to that ultra loop that would have put you guys past the cutoff times and would have quite possibly done some harm to Erica being that late in a race. So we're always going to make the right call for the athlete's safety, and that's what was made.
Yeah.
Any naysayers out there, I'll throw my shoe at you, because nobody else faced the obstacles that you guys faced that day. Nobody else has even tried it.
Yeah.
That's the craziest part when you think about it, is this was all new territory. So
totally new. Yep. And I knew in the moment that it was going to potentially cause, some people might think, is this okay? But I firmly believe that we made the right choice 100%. And, I knew how I was feeling, and I knew how Jonathan was feeling. And we both had our own struggles. And at that point, I didn't want to be a reason that maybe Erica would something would happen. Aside from the terrain itself, we were getting tired, and we knew our limits, and that was the game day choice. And we did have Jonathan, one of the members, he ran it. So we did at least have one member do the entire second lap.
That way you tracked all 34 miles.
Yeah. And that way it wasn't a DNF. And that way we could at least say part of our team did it all, because we all felt like crap. I'm not going to lie. I mean, we all wished we could have done it. We all wished that the situation was not as painful for Erica, or not as uncomfortable or unsafe or as muddy, because that rain had come through too. Like, we had gone through the ultra loop the first time, and in the time between that first lap and then us going a second lap, we had a huge amount of rain dump that would have made it even that much more unsafe. So yeah, I mean, we still, because we are racers at heart, and because we are, we want to do the best we can and make the best choices, we were upset that we didn't do it. So Jonathan was like, I got it. And so he did it. So at least we had that piece that made us, I think, all feel a little bit better. So anyone too that saw us at one point, we were kind of sitting off the side of the race course, Joey and myself and Erica, where we were just kind of hanging out. And so we were like the cheerleaders for everybody coming through, because they, we were on the side and we're waiting for Jonathan. And so we got to have a lot of good conversation, a lot of people who looked like they needed some morale boost, and we gave it to them best we could, some encouragement. So I feel like we kind of gave back to in that time frame, that we weren't just sitting around. We were like really genuinely trying to help, even in that time of limbo that we were in.
Completing any 31-mile plus race is an accomplishment by itself. Completing it with a wheelchair, even if you missed that 2-mile loop on the second one, it's still 30 plus miles off-road with a wheelchair. And nobody can take that away. That's something that's just amazing.
I think so. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. But that is not to take away from the fact that you did it too. So if you don't have any other questions about my go around with it, I would love to hear.
So my go around, I was on chair for support for the one-leg beast. Now, being on support for him probably would have been a lot different if the conversations at dinner were a little bit different than they were the night before. But essentially, somebody challenged one leg that he couldn't complete it without getting in a chair. And so he made it his personal vendetta to prove that person wrong. It doesn't matter who you are. If you say, Brian, one leg can't do something, he's going to prove you wrong. And so after pushing and carrying and finagling that first lap with a wheelchair that was empty, a wheelchair with somebody in it is one thing. With it empty, you're still having to carry it. And it was the 3-wheeled chair. So every time we hit mud, I had to pick up the front. And the people that were there in support of us ended up needing support. One of the gals had been in a car accident the day before, and she was still out on course trying to do an ultra for her very first Spartan. That was also her first Spartan. She'd never done a Spartan before.
Are you
She's
serious?
out doing an ultra. I'm serious.
What?
Yeah, she's like, hey, I'm going to sign up for an ultra. Okay.
Sure.
Had she not gotten an accident the day before, I think she'd have finished. I mean, she made it to transition and out on lap 2, and then she just, her hip and her back were just at the point she couldn't go anymore. But back to lap 1. So lap 1, we're doing it all with the wheelchair, and we're following one leg. And anytime we would stop for anything, he would just keep going, because that's how he does it. And, we'd be there to help him change out his bandage or bring him fresh water or whatever he needed for doing that. And then at one point, I don't remember what happened, but something happened, and we ended up stopping for a few minutes, and one leg just kept going. And then all of a sudden, when we got close to transition, there's the part where you go up the hill towards Festival, then you turn around and come back through Dunkwall and all that.
Mm-hmm.
One leg's already coming down the hill back towards us. He's like, oh no, you give me the chair. I'll take the chair back. And just being hilarious about it, because he was already a half mile ahead of us. and at that point, he was adamant he was not going to sit in that chair. And that created the situation where we left the chair at transition for you guys. But later in the day, it created another situation where one leg wasn't able to go out on Sunday, because out there on one leg and a blade for 34 miles is just amazing. I don't even know how to describe it, but he finished it. Mm-hmm. And it hurt him bad, but he finished it. And that was because he made the decision. He was going to show the haters wrong. Didn't matter who it was. He was going to prove them wrong. And that's what he did.
Yep.
You talked about how on that second lap, maybe skipping an obstacle here and there. Man, I tell you, there was everyone I could see when we got that late in the day. Like, they were barely doing a squat or two at obstacles. They looked like some of them would just sit down like they're going to go down and do a burpee and just stay down. Just more and more people going off for medical later and later in the day because it got hot again. And that just that kicked everyone's butt. At one point we were out there, Emma, after being out there for so many hours, and I think we were 26 miles in, she couldn't read her own Fitbit anymore. She thought that it was her heart rate that was increasing when it was her active workout minutes that was increasing. And it got her into a panic. And we happened to come across one of the Oscar Mike runners that was a nurse. And she took a quick pulse and said, yeah, your pulse is really high. And so she called for medical. And medical came. They didn't have any equipment with them, though. So they didn't check her pulse. They didn't do anything on course. They took her all the way back to the medical tent, checked her out, said there's absolutely nothing wrong with her. And then they went ahead and took her back to where she was on course because medical didn't have the proper equipment. They let her finish the race. So here we are. It's just me and Tammy, kind of kicking rocks, upset that we lost. Oh, and Preacher, he was there too. But we were just kicking rocks because we lost Emma, and she was like the one thing we're going to get through this race. And as we're approaching the end there where you can see Festival, here she comes just running, guys, I made it, they put me back on course. And she's just hauling. And this is 27 miles in that she got this new energy and actually ran to catch all the way back up with us and finish the race together with us. And that first lap through, like you said, before the rain hit, it was yucky. After the rain hit, everything was 10 times harder. The mud, as you come off of bucket carrier, there's that long mud that was the same thing similar to the Ultra Loop, where it was chest deep in places and roots and just nastiness. And Emma at one point was like up to her neck in it from falling over. But that was the fun part, is we were all back together as a group and finished. My story, I'm sure I'll go into great detail sometime on that race. I hate doing anything that's over 20 miles, and I keep signing up for stuff that's over 20 miles. On Facebook, I just posted the other day, I had a memory show up from when Virginia and I did a 50 miler. We started out with a big group of people, and then by the end of the night, it was just Virginia and I that finished. And I was like, after doing this ultra, I think I can do better. So I posted up, who wants to go do another 50 miler with me? And I had a couple of people raise their hands. So we're going to go do another 50-mile race because we're stupid.
That is so awesome, though. No.
It'll just be, it'll be, there's a local park where we got two parks to choose from. One that has a 5-mile loop that we can do, or one that has a 9-mile loop. It sounds like they kind of wanted to do the 9-mile loop. But what we did last time was you go out and you do a loop, you come back, you nutrition, that way you don't have to carry all of your stuff like a traditional 50 miler. Because if you're doing a 50-mile trail race, you're carrying all of your equipment, you're carrying your food. For a lot of these people, it's our first 50 miles, or in my case, it'll be my second 50 miler, but still, I'm not the fastest guy. I am a bit of a mule. They just throw heavy things on me and I carry it. But I think that's why they love having me on course with more heart than
That's
scar.
fantastic.
Keep giving me stuff. But
well, that's my skill is that I'm not fast, but I don't know when to stop. I guess that's that whole addict thing. I don't know. I don't know when to stop. So I just keep going and going and going until I fall out. So
that's exactly what I do.
We have our skills.
And that's probably left over from our addictions. Just keep going until we fall out. Because before, I would drink until I fell over. So now I just I run and I push my body till I fall over. But
so awesome.
So we're doing that. And then after the ultra, Emma, Tammy, and I, in a group conversation, we're just kind of talking about well, we didn't do this obstacle, or we didn't do this. Yes, we got the mileage in, but could we do better? And we all agreed we could do better. And Emma, Tammy, and I, and anybody else that signs up from that group, we're already signed up for Fayetteville 2023 to go and do it better. During the race, Emma was sitting there, I'm never doing this again. I'm never doing this again. I'm never going to do a race this long. Forget this, not going to do it, and then the next morning, she's already, I can do it better. I did it once. I know I can do it better.
It's that post-race euphoria and hysteria.
Hysteria. See, I didn't get that because, somebody reached out to me again about a week before the race and said, hey, I'm going to be out there with my wheelchair. Can you do the super with me? And I had no intention when I flew out there of doing an ultrafecta. That was not my plan at all. I was going to come out, I was going to do the ultra, and if I felt up to it, I was going to do the sprint.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a message.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Don, I want you on my chair. And again, it's always team before self. So got out the duct tape, put my feet back together, and went out for 2 more races on Sunday. Because why not? Why not go out for another 6 and another 3? Lots of fun was had.
I got to tell you, I've done ultrafectas before. 100% that weekend, even over just trifecta weekends, that weekend was the most memorable, the most awesome, the most fulfilling weekend I think I've ever had, race weekend.
Yeah, no, I agree that
Yeah.
it was real strange because Sunday night, Joey and I drove back to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And then I flew home Monday night, but the way things worked out, I ended up sitting at the airport for 8 hours that day. And there's a lot of good time for reflection, though, just sitting there watching planes and thinking back through the race. And even now, I'm still not fully decompressed on what happened that weekend. It's just still talking with Juan, still talking with Nicole and Emma. Everybody that was out there that weekend, it was just amazing that we all finished everything. And
yeah, we set out a goal to get the whole team through the weekend, and I have to always give massive respect to Joey for organizing and herding all of us cats and keeping us in line, and also just keeping the focus on what was important. And that was, getting the athletes through, but also just getting through and, having a good time. And it was a historic weekend, I think, for More Heart Than Scars in general. And I was so proud to be a part of that. I couldn't even, I used to see them from afar and think, that's really cool, And then I randomly met Joey one time on course in West Virginia, and we became friends. And then when he found out about Sober Spartans, it just seemed like a natural kind of sister brotherhood. Yeah. I feel like, I do think, that I ride the line between the two, which team am I on? And I'll always be a Sober Spartan because it is my baby, but also just, it's such an important part. But I think that More Heart Than Scars, to me, it's almost like it's the Sober Spartans is like the younger sister. And I feel like More Heart is like the older brother who, once you're growing and maturing your sober story, it only makes sense to then turn and offer your service. And so that's where the More Heart aspect comes in. So I do feel like I kind of graduated to that. I don't know if that makes sense, but
well, it does, especially with Zach, the founder, being a Sober Spartan also.
Mm-hmm.
That really helps solidify that connection between the two groups. And part of the 12-step theory is service, and getting out there on course and providing service to these people to get them and empower to empower an adaptive athlete to do something that they didn't think they could do or that people said they couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Every time, it's so hard for me to be out here on the West Coast because like every weekend I've got FOMO. Every weekend Joey's out there racing, and it's like, man, I could be out there helping. And it's not about I could be out there helping so that I can get accolades. No, it's because I want to be out there to support my athletes.
Mm-hmm.
When you do these courses, I'm sure you and Erica bonded beyond belief doing that course with her. And now you see her out on a course, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to be there. That's my athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is how it feels after you've been out there for 3 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours at the side of this athlete and getting them through it. There's a lot of FOMO when you get home and you can't be out there with them.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, being in Virginia, I'm just north enough that I don't necessarily get, the like Georgia races and the Florida races. Hopefully that will change and I'll be able to actually travel more once school starts or stops once I graduate. But it's FOMO, right? They're off doing something every single weekend. And there's so many athletes that are, that they help and that participate. And I want to meet them all.
Yep. This last weekend, at Murder Creek, they had 2 of our younger athletes, Jenna and Aaron's daughter, that I can't remember her name right now. But they were out on course, and I don't know if you saw the finish line where they got to put the medals on each other.
Yeah, that
And,
was good. That was good tears.
Yep, that almost causes them now. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I wasn't ready for that. I will tell you, like I knew good feels and I've known good feels before. I did not expect the amount of happy tears and like just good feels that were going to be overwhelming me. And it did take days to like understand all of that. And also, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Today's episode was Nicole Campbell, and she was talking about just getting home and decompressing from all the love that she felt from that weekend. From even on Sunday when she didn't get to race, and she just get to sit there and talk with everybody and experience it. And for us, the support. I mean, we get to that finish line, and this year it's been very different because both Bess and Nicole have started walking the finish line. I don't know if you caught that, but that's something huge because, well, Bess is less than 2 years off of a traumatic spinal cord injury, and she's progressing.
Yeah.
She, in the little bit of time I've known her, she's moving a lot better. She may not be where she wants to be, being a former Pilates instructor and super fit and able to do everything, but she's moving around better and walking, and Nicole's the same thing. And when you talk to them, it's the empowerment that they got from getting out on course and doing things that people said they couldn't do. So I don't know. I'm rambling. I'm lost back in my thoughts about the weekend because, it's been a few weeks, but it still feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
That was the biggest event that I think I've been at since COVID. Because even Atlanta, we had a bigger team. There's 30 plus of us there, but Fayetteville, there was a lot of like team time together at that base camp there and traveling on course together and stuff. So Atlanta was the first time that we'd ever had 3 chairs on course at the same time.
Oh,
so
wow.
This year's been a historic year because that was a first there. And then we had a first for the Ultra. We had 3 chairs on course that day too, technically, because we had Beast's chair, Erica's chair, and then Bess was out doing the Beast. So
yeah,
this whole
pretty
year,
amazing. So amazing.
one after another. But we're well over an hour.
Yeah.
And honestly, we could probably go for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, we could.
But for my lunch break, I should probably try to actually go act like I'm working again.
Yeah, I got another Zoom call. I've been on Zoom all day for school.
Yep.
Because thankfully our teacher is letting us do it all on Zoom because gas prices are so high, and we have so many people coming from like across the state to come to class, since it's one of the prestigious programs in the state.
Yep.
So in order to accommodate, she's been doing it all on Zoom, which is great. But then I've been on my computer from 9 a.m. until 1. And then I took a quick walk in between. And then you and I talking. And then now I got another call at 3:30. So
Awesome.
Anyway, side note, I wanted to this isn't necessarily an advertised thing, and I don't know what's going to happen with the whole Asheville, whether it's going to happen or not. But Zach and I were talking a week or two ago, and he wants to do a Sober Spartan retreat at headquarters.
Yeah.
Well, all that being said, I know you're not planning on Asheville, but it would be cool if you were able to come. And if not, maybe if it goes well, maybe Zach will be kind enough to offer an annual Sober Spartan retreat or something, or we could do something.
I know a big part of the plan with redeveloping headquarters there was to be able to host more events like that, retreats for adaptive athletes, and to include the Sober Spartans.
Yeah.
So we'll keep looking forward to that and get some time out at home base soon.
I like it.
Thanks for listening to Sober Spartans on the BeastNet podcast.
Please remember to be respectful of the guests on the show and their level of anonymity. Episodes of Sober Spartans will air the last Sunday of the month and are open to the public to listen to. If you hear this and feel like you need help, don't be afraid to reach out. Find us on Facebook at Sober Spartans or email me at beastnetpodcast@gmail.com. We're here for you.